Hi, everyone. Today we are going to talk about the leadership repertoire, emotional intelligence, and leadership styles. Today's chapter is about the leadership repertoire, which means effective leaders do not rely on one single style. Instead, they have a range of styles they can use depending on the people, the situation, and the goal. The big idea here is flexibility. The best leaders are not locked into one way of leading. They know when to inspire, when to coach, when to listen, and when to give clear direction. This slide introduces one of the most useful comparisons in the chapter. Leadership styles are like golf clubs. A good golfer does not use the same club for every shot, and a good leader does not use the same style for every challenge. Strong leaders switch between six distinct styles. The chapter explains that understanding these styles matters because they shape emotional climate, and emotional climate shapes performance. So this is not just about personality, it is about results. For example, a manager leading a team through a merger probably needs a visionary style to explain where the company is going. That same manager might need a democratic style later when asking the team how to improve a broken process. Six leadership styles in a nutshell: impact, resonance, and application. So there are six styles here. This slide gives the big picture. There's visionary, coaching, affiliative, democratic, pace setting, and commanding. Four of them usually create resonance and improve climate. Two of them can be useful, but they need to be used carefully because they often create stress or dissonance when overused. The point is not that some styles are always good and some are always bad. The point is that leaders need judgment. Let's look at visionary. The visionary style moves people toward shared dreams. This style has the most positive effect on climate overall. Visionary leaders explain where the organization is going and why it matters. They do not necessarily tell everyone every small step. Instead, they create direction and purpose. That gives people freedom to innovate while still staying aligned with the mission. For example, if a new dean tells faculty, our goal is to become the most student-centered business program in the region, that is visionary leadership. It gives people a larger purpose to organize their work around. Coaching. The coaching style connects personal goals with organizational goals. This style is highly positive because it builds people over time. A coaching leader is not only focused on today's task, they are also thinking about the employee's long-term development, strengths, and aspirations. Coaching works best when people want to grow and when the leader is genuinely invested in helping them improve. An example of this is a department chair that might tell a newer professor, I know you want to move into leadership someday, so I want to give you a chance to coordinate this project and build that skill set. That is coaching. Affiliative. The affiliative style creates harmony. It is relationship centered and focuses on connection, trust, and emotional support. This style is especially useful when morale is low, when there's been conflict, or when a team needs healing. Affiliative leaders pay close attention to how people are feeling and try to strengthen relationships within the group. An example of this is after a difficult semester or after layoffs. A leader who checks in with people personally, recognizes stress, and rebuilds trust is using an affiliative style. Democratic. The democratic style values input and gains commitment through participation. These leaders ask questions, listen, and involve people in decisions. This style creates a positive climate because people feel respected and included. It is especially helpful when the leader needs buy-in or wants to gather ideas from people who are close to the work. For example, if a business owner wants to redesign customer service policies, asking frontline employees what customers complain about most is a democratic leadership style. Pace setting. The pace setting style sets very high standards and models them personally. On the surface, this can seem impressive, especially when a leader is highly competent and driven. But the chapter warns that this style often creates a negative climate if it is poorly executed or overused. People may feel that they can never catch up, and the leader may start doing too much themselves instead of developing or empowering the team. A real world example, a manager who says, I already finished my part, why aren't you done yet, may get short term input, but often they are creating pressure, burnout, and dependence. And lastly, commanding. The commanding style gives clear direction and demands immediate compliance. This is the most forceful style. It is useful in true crises, emergencies, or with serious performance problems. But the chapter makes it clear that it often creates a highly negative climate if misused. When employees are constantly told exactly what to do, they lose ownership, initiative, and motivation. For example, in a fire or an emergency room or an active security threat, commanding leadership makes sense. In a normal office meeting, it usually backfires. This slide returns to the full set of the six styles, and it reinforces that main point that effective leaders have range. The goal is not to pick your favorite style and use it all the time. The goal is to understand what each style does to people and when it is most appropriate. Leadership is situational. The foundation of resonance. This slide connects leadership style back to emotional intelligence. The chapter explains that each leadership style rests on different emotional intelligence competencies. Leaders with a positive emotional impact tend to create a stronger climate, and that stronger climate is linked to better financial results and better performance. So, emotional intelligence is not a soft extra, it is foundational. A typically brilliant manager who cannot read a room may still struggle to lead effectively. Knowledge alone does not create resonance. The visionary leader, inspiring shared dreams. This introduces the visionary leader in more detail. Visionary leaders articulate a compelling future. They move people towards shared dreams and help them understand the larger purpose behind their work. This style is especially well done when an organization needs a new direction, a turnaround, or a renewed sense of purpose. The visionary leader is not just assigning tasks, they're helping people see where the team is headed. Now let's look at this case study. Shawana Leroy's vision. She transformed a struggling social work agency by engaging employees, articulating a shared mission, and fostering innovation. She demonstrated how a visionary leader sets the tone and inspires collective commitment. She took over the social work agency where employees were buried in roles and had lost sight of the mission. Instead of immediately imposing change from the top, she began by talking with employees one on one. She asked what they were proud of, what was working, and what was getting in the way. Then she recentered the organization around the mission of helping poor families. That is what visionary leadership looks like in practice, reconnecting people to purpose. This happens in schools too. A principal may inherit a building where everyone is focused on paperwork and compliance. A visionary leader reminds the staff that the real mission is student growth and learning. The impact of visionary leadership. It sets people free to innovate, experiment, and take calculated risks. It provides clarity on the big picture and individual roles, building commitment. It enhances employee retention by aligning personal values with company mission. It defines a performance feedback standard tied to the vision, creating purpose, and overall, the most effective leadership approach for inspiring work. So, this slide lays out why visionary leadership is so effective. People are free to innovate and take calculated risks because they understand the big picture. It provides clarity about where the organization is going and how each person's role fits into that larger purpose. It can also improve retention because employees are more likely to stay where they feel their values align with the mission. In other words, visionary leadership helps people feel that their work matters. Visionary emotional intelligence, inspiration, and empathy. Inspirational leadership articulates purpose with self-confidence, self-awareness, and empathy. Transparency openly shares information and knowledge, fostering trust and informed decisions. And empathy. This senses others' feelings and perspectives to articulate a truly inspirational and resonant vision. This slide explains the emotional intelligence side of visionary leadership. Three things are especially important here: inspiration, transparency, and empathy. Inspiration helps the leader communicate purpose in a way that people want to follow. Transparency builds trust because the leader shares information openly rather than using secrecy or smokescreens. Empathy matters because a leader cannot inspire people if they do not understand what those people value, feel, or fear, or care about. An example of this is a leader trying to motivate burned out employees with empty slogans that will fail. A leader who understands why people are frustrated and then connects the vision to their real concerns is much more effective. Let's look at the strengths and weaknesses of visionary leadership. This is important because it keeps the chapter balanced. The visionary style is especially effective in turnarounds and when a fresh vision is needed, but it does have limits. It may fail with a team of experts or peers who already know the field better than the leader and may see a sweeping vision as disconnected or pompous. It can also create cynicism if the leader becomes overbearing instead of genuinely inspiring. For example, if a new administrator walks into a room full of experienced faculty and starts making grand speeches without understanding the culture, the response may be eye rolling instead of buy in. So, visionary leadership is particularly effective during turnarounds or when a fresh vision is desperately needed, transforming organizations and maximizing buy in for long term goals. But again, it can fail with expert teams. They'll see you as pompous. It can cause cynicism or undermine egalitarian spirit if the leader becomes overbearing instead of inspirational. The coaching leader, developing potential. This slide shifts to the coaching style. Coaching leaders develop people over time. They connect individual aspirations with the organization's goals and help employees build confidence and capabilities. This style is not just about correcting mistakes, it is about helping someone grow into their next level. Let's look at the case study of David Ogilvy's mentorship. Advertising legend David Ogilvy forged deep bonds with employees, like Shelley Lazarus, who's now CEO, through personal conversations about their lives, dreams, and career hopes. This exemplifies the power of personal developments. This is one of the best coaching examples in the chapter. He took time to talk with Shelley about Lazarus, about her life, her goals, and where she wanted to go in her career. Those conversations built a bond and showed real investment in her future. That is coaching. It goes beyond immediate performance and asks, who are you becoming, and how can I help you get there? An example of this is a really good department chair. They do this when they ask a newer faculty member not just how classes are going, but what kind of career they want to build over the next 5 years. The impact of coaching leadership. This slide lays out the benefits of coaching. It predicts positive emotional response and better results, even with other styles. It establishes rapport and trust through genuine interest in people's lives. It fosters open feedback and aligns employee aspirations with organizational goals. It motivates by linking daily work to long-term personal objectives. It delegates challenging assignments that stretch and develop employees. Coaching also motivates because people see how what they are doing now connects to who they want to become later. Good coaches also delegate challenging assignments that stretch employees instead of just giving them safe, repetitive work. So let's look at developing others. Developing others acts as a counselor, exploring goals, values, and expanding abilities. You provide authentic advice that is genuinely in the employee's best interest. And empathy, you listen first before reacting or giving feedback, ensuring interactions stay on target and build trust. This slide explains the emotional intelligence behind coaching. Developing others is the key to competence. Emotional self-awareness matters because the leader has to give advice that is genuine and not driven by ego. Empathy matters because the leader has to listen before reacting. A coach who listens well can tailor feedback to the person instead of giving generic advice that misses the mark. What are the challenges of coaching leadership? This slide highlights that coaching does not always work. It works best with employees who are motivated, seeking development, and it fails if they're lacking initiative. It can fail when the leader lacks sensitivity or expertise. It also fails when coaching turns into micromanaging. The chapter points out that some pace-setting leaders think they are coaching when they're really just telling people how to do their jobs and focusing only on short-term outcomes. So it fails if the leader lacks expertise or sensitivity for effective guidance. Poorly executed coaching can devolve into micromanaging or excessive control. Pace setters often mistake, again, telling for coaching, focusing only on short-term goals. An example of this is a boss who says, let me show you exactly how I want every email written. They may call that coaching, but employees usually experience it as control or micromanaging. The affiliative leader, cultivating harmony. Again, we look at the affiliative style. Affiliative leaders create harmony by connecting people to each other. They prioritize emotional needs and relationships, and they are especially useful when a team is under stress, trust is broken, or morale is low. This style builds loyalty and emotional connection within the group. Let's look at the case study of Joe Torre's empathy. As a New York Yankees manager, Joe Torre exemplified affiliative leadership by openly sharing emotions and supporting players through personal struggles. He built immense loyalty and team spirit, tending ably to their psyches. This case study shows affiliative leadership in action. As a Yankees manager, he paid close attention to the emotional needs of his players. He supported them through personal struggles, publicly acknowledged what they were going through, and built deep loyalty and team spirit. He was not just managing performance, he was tending to the emotional side of the team. Another example of this is an affiliative leader in a workplace that might check in with an employee who is going through a family crisis and make sure they feel supportive instead of ignored. Sorry, make sure they feel supported instead of ignored. Affiliative emotional intelligence, collaboration, and empathy. Collaborative competence. This focuses on promoting harmony and fostering friendly, nurturing personal relationships. Empathy cares for the whole person, understanding feelings and perspectives to boost morale. And conflict management. This skillfully knits together diverse individuals into a harmonious working group when challenges arise. This shows the emotional intelligence behind the affiliative style. Collaboration matters because the leader is trying to foster friendly, connected relationships. Empathy matters because the leader sees the whole person, not just the job role. Conflict management also matters because affiliative leaders often need to repair rifts and help diverse people work together smoothly. Pitfalls of over-reliance on affiliative style. Work can take second place to feelings, neglecting task-oriented goals. It may fail to offer corrective feedback, allowing poor performance to go uncorrected. Leaders can become clueless by avoiding confrontation, being the last to hear bad news, and ineffective in crises or when clear directiveness are needed, leaving followers rudderless. This is a slide that students often find surprising. The affiliative style can absolutely be overused. If leaders focus only on keeping people happy, work goals take second place. Poor performance may go uncorrected because the leader wants to avoid discomfort. The chapter warns that overly nice leaders can become the last to hear bad news because people learn that difficult conversations never really happen. An example of this is a team leader who keeps saying, "It's okay, no worries," even when deadlines are being missed, may preserve harmony in the short term, but the long term hurts the team. The democratic leader, commitment through participation. This style values people's input and gains commitment through participation. It builds buy-in, consensus, and leverages valuable insights from employees, leading to a positive emotional climate. This creates a positive emotional climate because people feel respected, heard, and invested in the outcome. Democratic versus autocratic, Sister Mary's approach. This case study captures the democratic style really well. Sister Mary had to close a school, but instead of doing it by fiat, she brought together teachers, staff, parents, and the community and let them participate in the process. The final decision was still painful, but because people were included, there was much more trust, respect, and acceptance. The chapter contrasts this with another priest who shut down a school immediately by decree and triggered lawsuits, protests, and prolonged conflict. This is a difference between a department chair saying, "Here's the schedule, deal with it," and saying, "I want your input before we finalize this because you're the ones teaching these courses." Democratic emotional intelligence, collaboration, and listening. This slide explains the emotional intelligence behind the democratic style. Teamwork and collaboration matter because democratic leaders genuinely want to hear others' thoughts and concerns. Conflict management matters because discussion can surface disagreement, and the leader has to keep the group constructive. Influence matters too because democratic leadership is not passive. The leader still has to help the group move toward a decision. Teamwork and collaboration creates a sense of truly wanting to hear employees' thoughts and concerns working as team members. Conflict management, you know how to quell conflict and create harmony, repairing rifts within the group. And then influence, superb listeners who inspire trust and participation, leverage diverse perspectives for better decisions. Now, what are the challenges of democratic leadership? This slide lays out the limits of the democratic style. It can produce endless meetings if consensus is hard to reach. It can create dithering and confusion if decisions are delayed too long. It is also risky if the leader seeks advice from people who are uninformed or not competent in the issue at hand. And it is a poor fit for a crisis when a quick decision is needed. For example, if the building alarm is going off, that is not the time to say, "Let's hear everyone's thoughts." It can lead to exasperating, endless meetings if consensus is elusive or decisions are delayed. It risks confusion and lack of direction if crucial decisions are postponed too long. Seeking advice from uninformed or incompetent employees can lead to disastrous outcomes. And it's ineffective in times of crisis where you need urgent on-the-spot decisions. Cautionary styles, pace setting, and commanding. While useful in specific situations, pace setting and commanding styles can build dissonance if misused. They must be applied skillfully and sparingly to avoid negative impacts on emotional climate and team morale. This marks an important shift in the chapter. Setting and commanding are not useless styles, but they're cautionary tales. They must be applied carefully and sparingly because when misused, they damage emotional climate and morale. The pace setting leader. This slide focuses on pace setting. Pace setting leaders set extremely high standards and personally model them. This can work with highly motivated, highly competent teams that need little direction, but it often turns negative because employees feel pressured to keep up without enough support. The leader can also come across as micromanaging, especially if they assume others can perform at the same pace they can. For example, a leader says, I finished this in 2 hours, so you should too, may not realize that they are creating discouragement rather than excellence. They set extremely high performance standards and exemplify them personally. They aim to get high quality results from a motivated and competent team. It can be highly effective, but often misused, leading to a negative climate and burnout. It's often seen as micromanaging. It assumes people can match pace without sufficient support. Now let's look at the commanding leader. Commanding leaders demand immediate compliance, often with direct, do what I tell you commands. They use direct, forceful instructions. The chapter says this style is most effective in genuine crises, in turnarounds, or with problem employees who need very clear boundaries. But it is also the style most frequently misused. It leads to a highly negative emotional climate and resentment. It kills initiative and it reduces people's sense of responsibility and ownership. It also can alienate employees, stifle initiative, and reduce their sense of responsibility and ownership. An example of this would be a commanding style makes sense if a hospital unit is in chaos and someone has to take charge immediately. It usually does not work well as a daily classroom, department, or office leadership style. Mastering your leadership repertoire, becoming a flexible, high impact leader. Assess the situation, understand the context, challenges, and team dynamics to identify optimal needs. Identify emotional intelligence needs. Determine which emotional intelligence competencies are most relevant for the current scenario. Choose the right style. Select the leadership approach best suited for the moment, considering desired outcomes. Adapt and integrate. Seamlessly switch and blend styles for optimal resonance, performance, and long-term results. Mastering your leadership repertoire means becoming flexible and high impact. The process on this slide is important. Assess the situation, identify the emotional intelligence needs, choose the right style, and adapt as needed. Great leaders do not just ask, what style do I like? They ask, what does the situation call for? So assess the situation, identify needs, choose the right style, and adapt and integrate. And that's the leadership repertoire.